Hi everyone, welcome back or welcome to my channel. My name's Lizzie. Today is video number 3 in my DIY wedding dress series, and today I'm going to show you all of the toiles that I made in the run-up to making my actual dress. Now, I don't know what the plural is for toile, or you might call it making a muslin, but making a toile or making a muslin is like making a test version of a garment in a cheaper fabric, and I made a lot of toiles. Toiles? What's the plural? Does anyone know? No idea. So, without further ado, oh, actually, before I get started, if you haven't seen my DIY wedding dress video 2 on the design, it might be good to watch that before you watch this video, because in that video I show you kind of all my design ideas and sort of the final design, or the final-ish design ideas that I was then aiming towards, and then you'll know why I made these particular toiles. But the very first toile that I made was a toile of the bodice of the V9075 jumpsuit. So, jumpsuit slash dress. So this is what the pattern looks like. It's a Vogue Very Easy pattern, V9075. It's one of my all-time favourites. I've made it 3 times? 4 times if you include a hack. And yeah, the bodice is right here. I did make some changes to it. So I lengthened the sleeves. I kind of tapered a longer sleeve on the end here. I also lengthened the bodice, and I took it in a bit at the bust, which is adjustments that I have made to this pattern before. And essentially, this was not a very successful toile. In fact, let me just flip to my notes, because I've made, just to prepare you, 10 toiles. So we might be here for a few minutes. And I basically, as I went through, the reason I'm now able to kind of look back and make this video is because I kept notes in my bullet journal. Like every step of the way, with every toile I made, I noted down like the adjustments that I made, like the outcome, fit issues, etc. And essentially with this toile, by the way, I'm going to put pictures in where I have pictures. I don't have pictures of everything. But the bodice fit quite well overall over my chest, but the sleeves were too tight. And essentially I only ever made one woven toile in the end, because I knew by this point that I really wanted some fitted sleeves. And making this toile made me realise I have no idea what I'm doing when it comes to drafting sleeves. I hadn't really found or come across a pattern that would do that for me, or give me a nice fitted woven sleeve, and I just really doubted my ability to create the bodice that I wanted and the fit of the sleeves in a woven fabric. So this toile was actually really successful in that it told me, do you know what, I'm going to ditch wovens, I'm going to try and make my bodice out of knit fabric. How many knit wedding dresses have you seen? Probably not many, but it'll all become clear. By the time I make the video where I actually reveal my wedding dress, it will become clear. So that was toile number 1. So I swiftly moved on to toile number 2, and this was the bodice again, but I moved on to stretch fabrics, and I looked at the Nico pattern from True Bias. Let me show it to you. So I've got a PDF version of this pattern. Ooh, too bright. I'll put a photo in. So the Nico top and dress by True Bias is like a high-necked, can be long-sleeved or no-sleeved, like knit dress or top. And I sort of hacked it a little bit, so I added some length to it, took it in at the waist. I added some extra room across the back and shoulders, because I know, although I'm small-busted, I've got quite broad chest and shoulders. So I made a bunch of adjustments, and the fabric that I used was leftover velvet jersey, stretch velvet from Lady McElroy, and this is kind of what it looked like, although again you're not really going to be able to see, so I'll put pictures in wherever I can. But it basically is a lovely slash neck, so I reverted to the slash neckline that I'd been considering, fitted tight sleeves. It was fitted on the bodice. This is like a top version, and then at the back it's ended up looking a bit dodgy at the back, so I did some adjustments to it, but it's then got the low scoop at the back. The outcome of this toile was positive. Well, it's all positive because it's all a learning process, right? But this toile taught me that I really liked the front neckline, because I got it sort of the perfect shape so that it just showed off a little bit of collarbone, which I really liked. I really like the back neck, what do you call it? Is it the neckline when it's at the back? I really like the shape of it at the back. But it was quite flimsy and I didn't have enough structure, so it told me that I needed to line it. So that was okay, challenge accepted. It was also a little bit gapey and baggy at the back. I think I have a very long back and it can be slightly arched, so I had a bit of spare fabric at the back to deal with. And it kind of signaled to me maybe I should make a body, because I really liked the effect of having a nice tight fitted stretch garment, but I was worried about it staying put and looking smooth, and I was worried about it riding up and coming out of place. So I thought, well, maybe I could make a body. That was an idea that came out of this toile. And I was also concerned about how I was going to get it to stay on at the shoulders. I didn't want it with a low back, I didn't want it to be falling off my shoulders. And I had a few drag lines coming from my shoulders to my bust, so I knew there was a bit of a fit issue. I wasn't quite sure how to deal with it at that stage. Toile number 3, I moved on to skirts. So I took a bit of a break from the bodice and I looked at skirts, and I self-drafted a box pleat skirt. And I did it with pretty big pleats. So these pleats were 11.7 centimetres wide. I did all sorts of maths and calculations to try and work out what size pleats I needed to fit my waist. But this is what it ended up looking like. So it ended up with 3 big pleats across the front and 3 big pleats across the back. I didn't bother to put zips in anything or finish anything because it didn't seem much point. It was purely to test fit and style. Oh, I haven't even told you, I bought like 30 meters of calico from Minerva Crafts. I'll link it down below, which was brilliant because I just had a ton of fabric to toile with. Yeah, and this basically told me that I kind of liked the box pleat thing, but these pleats were too big for my taste. So I moved on from that. Toile number 4 was a circle skirt. So as I've mentioned in my previous video, I was really torn with what kind of skirt to make. I knew I wanted a skirt with volume and to balance out my shoulders. I wanted to sort of shoulders, waist, hips thing going on. But yeah, I didn't know whether to do a gathered skirt, a pleated skirt, a circle skirt, and I've never actually made a circle skirt before because it doesn't tend to be my style. It's not something I'm drawn to. But I wanted to make one to try it out, so I made it in the calico, and I really like, it's really pretty. It's lovely how a circle skirt falls, but, and you'll see from the pictures I'm going to put in, the volume for a circle skirt is in the wrong place for me. I'm not able to show you the length of this very well, but I hope you can see it in the pictures I put up. Yeah, I liked it, but the volume was too low down. I wanted the volume higher up at my hips. I also kind of decided to skip the whole gathered skirt thing because I just wanted something a bit more structured, a little bit more formal. To me, gathered skirts can be beautiful, but yeah, I wanted something a bit more structured than just gathers. Toile number 5, I reverted back to bodices for, so I went back to my second bodice toile. So this was the stretch toile that I made, and I needed to line it because I'd figured out that 1 layer of fabric on its own was not going to be enough in a nice sort of thin stretchy jersey, and so I definitely need to line it, not only for structure but also for modesty. I didn't want to have like nipples showing through and all that kind of thing, and with it being a low back design I knew I wouldn't be able to wear a bra, but that's okay because I'm quite small busted. So I'd ordered from Minerva Crafts. All my supplies for toiles came from Minerva Crafts. I think I'm not going to link all that down below now because I'm not showing you the fabrics now particularly. I think I'll probably tell you about all the fabric that I've used in the fabrics video, which is going to come after this one. But essentially I got it's the medium stretch lining dress fabric from Minerva Crafts, and I essentially lined this in retrospect, and I essentially did it by sewing it all together, like right sides together, folding it back the right way and understitching, which seemed to work out all right. You can see sort of what it looks like along that seam. Oh, is it going to focus? My big head's in the way. From the inside, I don't know if that really shows you. But that was kind of a worthy experiment because it showed me that I would definitely need another layer. and I really liked this lovely sort of stretchy. I didn't know that stretch lining was a thing, and I was absolutely delighted to go to the good old internet and find out what the hell do you stretch, what on earth do you line jersey garments with, because I'd never kind of come across lining something stretchy before. So that was a great discovery. It worked well even in the sleeves. So yeah, I figured out that I could line something, I could line a jersey bodice. Brilliant, success. This is toile number 6. So for toile number 6 I reverted back to working on the skirt, and I made another box pleat skirt in calico, but this time with much smaller pleats. So you can see that these pleats are much narrower than the original box pleat toile I made, which I'm just going to hold it up again to show you for comparison. So I had these huge big wide pleats in the first one. And then I switched to this one, well, made this one, which was just, they're so much narrower because I figured out that I wanted more volume and more kind of detail in the pleats. So that's what this one ended up looking like. And I really liked having the extra volume and the extra pleats, but actually I decided, you know what, these pleats are too small. These pleats in the end were 4.4 centimetres wide compared to 11 point something for the first one. So big difference. And yeah, I figured out that I needed something in the middle. Toile number 7 was also about skirts, but this time it was all about the pockets. So I made like a little mini panel of the skirt. This was still with small pleats, and I was basically trying to work out how I could put a lapped pocket in, even though I was putting in a side zip. Now, with hindsight, this was all a bit of a massive waste of time. Not a waste of time, because I learned a lot doing it, but I think I could have just put ordinary inseam pockets in that were attached at the waistband as well as at the side seam. I spent so long trying to figure out how to do a lapped pocket in a garment. So basically, I have made the New Look 6446 jumpsuit. And that pattern has a lapped pocket, and you know it's where I'll try and put a picture in, but where you can the pocket kind of opens across the front of the garment, and then you can see the sort of back panel of the pocket is showing on the outside, but it all kind of folds together in one piece when you're sewing it. And the first time I sewed one I thought, my god, this is a jigsaw craziness, but it all makes sense in the end. And for some reason I just got it in my head that an ordinary side seam pocket wouldn't be sturdy enough. I didn't want it to like pull on the shape of the dress. I wanted it to be attached at the top and be a nice big rectangular pocket like this. So this is what would have been the inside of the garment. In reality, I could have used just kind of an ordinary, it's like semicircle shaped pocket, because you can get those where they are attached in at the what is this called? Oh my gosh, sorry guys, words are left me today. You can draft just an ordinary pocket that doesn't need to be lapped, that you can attach up here. But then the other problem was getting a side zip in at the same time, and I did figure it all out in the end, but I just think it wasn't really necessary. And actually, although I'm really pleased I did put pockets in my actual wedding dress, I'm sort of skipping ahead here and giving you a sneak peek, I didn't actually I think I could have just put just one pocket in and saved myself a headache with the side that had the zip, and just left the pocket off the side with the zip and just had one pocket on the other side, because I didn't really need 2 pockets. It was useful to have a hanky in one pocket, but yeah, so I really did a lot of, I think, slightly unnecessary brain crunching trying to work out how to do this, but I figured it out. Don't ask me how, because I don't think I could do it again. Toile number 8 was kind of the finale of the skirt toiles. So this was everything that I'd learned from the previous skirt toiles come together into one toile. So I'd done smaller, or I did smaller pleats this time. So these pleats were 6.7 centimetres wide, and you can see if I hold it up that they're a really nice kind of mid-width in comparison to the other 2 toiles that I made. You can see that I put a waistband on this toile. I've got my lapped pocket in this side seam. which does exactly what it's supposed to do. And then I lined it as well. You can see this lining sticking out here. I took a couple of goes with the lining because I got it all wrong the first time and didn't draft enough space for my hips in it. But second time lucky was a charm. And what I want to show you is that I put, so my body obviously was here, so this is the part that touches my skin, the nice smooth part of the lining. On the other side of the lining, so the bits that sandwiched between the outside fabric and the lining, I've put tulle in here. So I wanted to test how I could give the skirt a bit of extra volume. Obviously I hadn't actually bought my fabrics at this point, so I still didn't actually know which fabrics I'd be definitely using. But, or I don't think I'd bought my fabric at this point actually. Anyway, this tulle has been gathered together and essentially just stitched across the bottom of the lining, and my plan was then to have a couple of layers going up the skirt a little way. So I've got like 2 or 3 layers of tulle to give an extra, actually it's not gathered, I tell a lie, it's not gathered, I pleated it with a fork. You know that fork trick of pleating fabric with a fork? Brilliant, you just sit with your fork at the sewing machine and flip it and Google it, there's tutorials on how to do it. Yeah, so that was as close to the final skirt as I got in the toile making process. Toile number 9 was back to bodices, so I'd kind of got the skirt pretty much nailed by this point. I was happy with my final toile, so it's back to bodices. And I'd got to the point of realising that I wanted to try a body. I thought about drafting it from the sort of Niku, the True Bias Niku top that I'd been working on, so this blue toile. This was all the True Bias Niku pattern, but hacked. But I thought, you know what, I'd already made quite a lot of adjustments to this. Even after all the adjustments that I'd made, it still wasn't perfect. I still had some drag lines here. It still just wasn't quite right. And I thought, instead of turning it into a complete Frankenstein pattern, why don't I just start afresh with a different pattern and see how I get on? Which is exactly what I did. I ordered the Simplicity 8435 pattern, which is a simple body pattern. It has this placket with the poppers on, but I decided to omit that, obviously, because that's not part of my design. So I hacked it a little bit to change the neckline and change the back neckline. And I used, actually, fabric that I'm wearing today, leftover fabric from when I made this dress. This is the Simple Sew Shannon Collection t-shirt dress. And so I made myself a body. I made a few adjustments to it just to make sure that it would hopefully fit me. And at this stage I didn't bother to line it or anything because this was the very first toile of this pattern, and I just wanted to see how it went. And the outcome was really good. It was a better fit in the body, like on all counts, than the True Bias Niku top, although it could be because of differences in fabric. Believe it or not, it was slightly too long in the body, which is crazy because I had lengthened it on purpose, but I've got a really long body, but I'd over-egged it. I'd added too much on, so I realised I needed to take some of the extra length back out again. And I realised that it was too big under the arms. There's quite a lot of extra fabric here, and I wanted it to be really close fitting and nice under my arm. I knew I'd be dancing lifting my arms up. I didn't want big, like, baggy sleeves underneath. So that was a really good starting point, and I then decided to make it in some fabric that would be a bit closer to what I would actually be using. Toile number 10, that you'll be pleased to hear after this long rambly video that this is the final toile that I made. And this is, again, it's a hack of the Simplicity 8435 pattern. So I continued with this pattern, and this is what it looks like. I made it in Scuba from Minerva Crafts. It was so difficult to choose some fabrics to toile this in because I didn't exactly know what my end fabric was going to be like. I was kind of guessing, trying to get a fabric that would be as similar as possible. I think I actually did have my wedding dress fabric by this point. It's so hard to remember. I should have drawn myself a timeline at the time. But basically this toile, I was really pleased that I made it in a white fabric. Well, this I think technically is ivory. And you can see that it's got, I didn't bother to ever do the poppers, I just pinned it when I was trying it on, but it's got the body section at the bottom there. This was a really successful toile because I learnt what interlining is. I had never heard of interlining before, but I was researching ways that I could line my bodice in the most successful way. And so I did a lot of research. I read loads of blog posts, just scrolled through the internet, getting all the advice that I could from the amazing sewing community. And I learned about interlining, which is essentially where you take your main fabric and then you take some kind of lining fabric and you sew them together and treat them as one. And it worked really well, and gave me, with this scuba fabric at least, it was pretty opaque. I may have to edit the photos that I put in slightly just to make sure you can't see my nipples, but by this point I'd accepted that I was going to need to wear some nipple covers just to make sure. But yeah, I was really pleased with this. The fit was really nice, like really nice slim fit. It didn't fit perfectly at the back, but it was like making a body was the key to getting the fit at the back kind of as good as I think I could get it, because having it done up under your crotch meant that it pulled it all tight and smooth and everything stayed where it was supposed to stay, because it was all, you know, it was a body. It couldn't ride up or shift about because it was all done up and tucked in and there's nowhere for it to go. So I basically ended up with a bit of a mismatch of toiles, but this was the best bodice toile that I ever did, as close to the final thing as I could achieve, along with my pleated skirt with my medium-sized pleats. So you guys now have a pretty good idea of what the dress ended up looking like, because those were my toiles that I worked off. All the way through the process I traced off all my pattern pieces, and obviously every time that I drafted the pleated skirt I was creating my own pattern pieces. And yeah, all the adjustments all along the way, I was changing my pattern pieces, making new copies of tracing off new versions of the pattern pieces. So when it came to actually sewing up my final wedding dress, I had all my pattern pieces ready from the toiling process, which was brilliant. Yeah, and all there was left to do at this point, really, or once I was, you know, well into the toiling stage, was to go and get my wedding dress fabric. There was an overlap. I'm sorry that my memory is kind of failing me here. But yeah, I bought my wedding dress fabric at the very beginning of January, I believe. And I did carry on toiling for some time afterwards. It took me, I made 10 toiles. Granted, they're all like unfinished. They don't have hems or, you know, finished edges or anything like that. They don't have zips in, most of them. I just pinned myself in. But it took a really long time to do the toiling phase. And my biggest tips to anyone who's also looking at making their own wedding dress is to be really organised with the time that you allocate for toiling. I'd say allocate yourself a good few months, like 3 months, I reckon, minimum. Much more if you're making a more elaborate design than I am, if you're making like a corset or something. Because it takes time. And the thing that I found really tough was trying to be really resourceful with my fabrics. As I said, I bought a big roll of calico from Minerva Crafts, like 30 meters or something crazy. Or maybe it was 10 meters. I'm not sure, it was a lot. But then I had to source fabrics to toile the stretch element in. So that took a lot. I was also ordering swatches at the same time of like the stretch linings and stuff so that I could work out what I'd use for the final end product. And in terms of just, yeah, having the right supplies to hand, ordering this pattern when I realised that this pattern was what I wanted to use, ordering the stretch linings and stretch fabrics to toile with and zips, and it just took a lot of thinking power to plan ahead. Okay, on Saturday I want to make X toile. What materials do I need to have to hand so I can get on and make it? And that was quite a big part of the challenge, to be honest. The toiling phase overall, I enjoyed it, but it was quite hard work by the end, and I was so pleased when I was finally ready to move on to the real thing. I wanted to show you guys a couple of the pages from my bullet journal because, as I said, I tracked everything. I made notes, I wrote down all the measurements, all the calculations with drafting my drafting my pleated skirts, etc. I needed to keep a really good log of what I did so I could look back and remember for the next toile and not lose track of everything. I do have a really bad memory, and that was crucial. And now it's really fun actually to look back and look at all my drawings that I did, sketches. Don't judge my rubbish sketches, they were just for me only. But yeah, that was really good. So there we go. Next video is going to be all about fabric shopping and how I chose my wedding dress fabric and which fabrics I chose. So I really hope you enjoyed this video. I'm sorry if it's been a bit all over the place and rambly. I feel like I had quite a lot to show you and I wanted to do it in a fairly short space of time, so I've tried to whiz through, but I also feel like I've done nothing but jabber on in a slightly illogical order. But anyway, give this video a thumbs up if you enjoyed it. Please subscribe to my channel if you'd like to see more of my videos, and I will see you next time for wedding dress fabric. Bye guys.